That's it, come here. Cell Squad is something. Don't look off the dance, man. Yo, you want something? Yeah, man, Cell Squad is... yeah, man, don't lock it off. Don't tell her. Guess what, Squad? Go buy a peanut from the peanut man. When him I go through in the dance. Welcome to True Island Stories. This is the story of Shirley Duppy. In every country, you'll find folklore tales that transcends through generations. Some are told around family dinners or bonfires, some at bedtime. The bedtimes ones, though, are the ones for some reason designed to make you scared to close your eyes. Those are the stories of the unnatural creatures or the duppies that lurks in the dark. In Africa, there are numerous ceremonies by priests or bush doctors more commonly used to conjure the dead spirits from their place of rest, and used by them for good or evil, depending on consumers' requests. When we were viciously ripped from our motherland Africa and brought to the Western world as slaves, our practices splintered into different sects and took on different names and practices according to the demographics. For instance, in Haiti, it became known as voodoo. It's very potent, though I'm sure it has its non-believers. But the Bible warns of good and evil spirits. How soon do we forget Jesus Christ when he ran the spirits from the pig into the sea, making pig a sworn enemy consumption from some denominations? While for others, the jerk swine is such a marvel of delicacy, eh? Wicked 10 fingers. But to each his own, eh? In Jamaica, the conjuring of unnatural spirit is called obia, and woe be unto the man or woman it is cast upon. There are several rumored potent combinations, for example, dankishi tankalanga water, parchment papers with their enemy's name written on it and worn in the bottom of your shoes to keep them from elevating in life or be successful. If it is said if an individual runs around an ackee tree 5 times calling your name or some sort, it keeps them down. If a person bury a name on a gum tree, and a host of other combinations. For each evil execution against a person, there's usually an antidote to suppress or cure such negative or obia ailment, so to speak. One ailment no one could find a cure for after she was conjured was the famous Shirley Duppy. Shirley Duppy was only summoned when there was an outstanding debt to be paid. She would unleash hell on her victims, as she did when first summoned in the aggressive garrison of Rollington Town in the late 80s in Jamaica. She unleashed havoc and mayhem and made national news. In fact, she was the only, and is only, the ever Duppy to do that. Yes, Shirley Duppy. People witnessed furniture flying around widely. Victims' residence, all kind of things going on with not a single soul inside. A strange, unidentified woman wailing, like cursing, was very audible coming from inside the premises. Scary. Kids were scared, terrified to go to sleep. And then she got buku upset. And when the owner was at work, got wind of what was happening at her house, as soon as she opened her gate to go investigate, the first thing that came at her was an empty piss pot chip up in her male chimney, which caught her smack in the middle of the face, and all kind of kitchen utensils come out flying through the all fridge, plate, cup, knife, spoon, fork, everything. She had to beat a hasty retreat as well, as was everyone in close proximity. Then all of a sudden, everything stopped to a complete silence. Everything in the air fell back right to ground like a dead bird. Curious onlookers stood afar, watching, gossiping, but none dared venture within 50 feet of the cursed premises. It was said Shirley Duppy was influenced by a Mr. D. Lawrence, an American who lived in the USA. He wrote many a books on the dark arts. He studied and practiced it immensely. He even did a long stint in Jamaica where his black magic practices derived from Hindu occultism and also African practices. He was a master mind manipulator and he studied the dark doctrines, and that helped elevated the now famed Obia culture in Jamaica, it is said. There's a saying, if you open your door and you see some strange powder sprinkled at your doorstep, do not step over it, or else. The debt in Wellington town was paid, and quickly Shirley Duppy vanished into oblivion until she was resummoned by an hungry complainant after an unpaid debt in Washington Gardens was there to be collected. Mr. Spence, who lived off Weymouth Drive in Washington Gardens, had incurred the services of Mrs. Dawn White, who was a dressmaker, to stitch 3 shirts for him. She did, and gave Mr. Spence, whom she knew as a regular customer. Mr. Spence promised to pay her for the goods he received on Monday, the following Friday. Week after week, promises after promises, and still no money from Mr. Spence. He had fallen on hard times. Mistress White didn't care. She did her work. Now she wanted her money. Those shirts weren't your ordinary run-of-the-mill regular shirts. They were made from 100% worm silk material, which Dawn had gotten on credit. Her creditors were down her throat for their moolah, which, she thought, left her no other option than to visit Mother Ramsay for help. Mother Ramsay couldn't help her. So then she went to the underworld, to hell's doorstep, and paid the gatekeeper to conjure up none other than the resting Shirley Duppy from her dormant slumber. It was reported by Mr. Spence that the first night the unusual occurrences started, he was fast asleep when he was awakened by numerous sounds of rock metal objects pelting his zinc roof at 3 a.m. at Wednesday morning. It was said he was so scared, he went under his bed with his Bible and flashlight and kept repeating Psalms after Psalms. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is heaven, thy will be done on earth as it is heaven. Our Father, who art in heaven. He started saying all backwards in his gibberish frenzy. He said the repetitive pelting stopped exactly 6 a.m. that said morning. And when he went outside to examine his roof via a ladder, he said he noticed not one stone on his carpet grass he had surrounding his house, which struck him as pretty strange. His roof was damaged severely by the dented marks left visibly by whatever objects landed on his roof that night. He went to bed close to 3 a.m. the following night just to see if he could catch the perpetrators red-handed. But his efforts proved futile. But as soon as he dozed off, he was again awakened by the pelting. But this time it was worse. The pelting was on the roof, the doors, the windows, from all sides of the house. He cowered under his bed for protection. And as same as the morning prior, the bombardment ceased at exactly 6 a.m. after it had started at exactly 3 a.m. He searched outside again, and not a single shred of evidence. Nowhere, except for the damages. Mr. Spence couldn't take it no more, so he confided in a friend and told of the strange occurrences and invited the friend to stay over and see what go on. She did, and for 3 days she stayed. Not a single sound. But as soon as she bid farewell that Monday evening, Mr. Spence's nightmare burst out of the pack and the bombardment started again at 3 a.m. Word of his dilemma started flying off the shelf until it reached the ears of a person who recognized the patterns of the alleged unnatural behavior and visited Mr. Spence, who by now was quite mentally disheveled. She told him the evil force was afoot. She went by one day to his house to see for herself. By then, Shirley Duppy had stepped on the accelerator and upped the tempo. When she reached Mr. Spencer's house, she ran into a large crowd gathered, screaming and talking gibberish. Furniture, appliances, kitchen utensils were being thrown around haphazardly. She knew immediately this was a job for Mother Ramsay. They said Mother Woman, or Obia Priestess as she was called. She was summoned. Mother Ramsay told Mr. Spencer, you know what? You should better pay whatever debt you owe immediately. You don't want to play with Shirley Duppy. Ah, Mr. Spence couldn't get to Miss White fast enough to pay for what he owed her plus tax. Soon as he did, all the hanky-panky stopped, and Mr. Spence was never bothered by Duppy Shirley again. That was the last major sighting of Shirley Duppy back in the 80s. Now, some of you who are listening might say, that's fake or ghosts don't exist. But I dare you to wash your eyes with rice water and tell me what you see if you were born with the gift of the seer.